Ladies and gentlemen, today I invite you to reflect on the most powerful force you will ever command. Not wealth, not influence, not even physical strength, but your own mind. It is your greatest asset or your most dangerous enemy. Left untrained, it can be destructive, deceptive, and overwhelming. But trained, disciplined, and aligned with your purpose, it can build kingdoms, heal wounds, and lead you to the life you once thought impossible. The mind can either be your greatest servant or your cruelest master. There is no neutral ground. You either train your mind to obey you or it will destroy you. We tend to think of the mind as us, as if our thoughts are always correct, always ours, and always useful. But that's not the case. Just because a thought appears in your head doesn't mean it's true. Just because you feel fear doesn't mean you're in danger. Just because you feel doubt doesn't mean you're unprepared. The mind is like a wild horse, beautiful, powerful, and fast. But without reins, it will throw you off and trample everything in its path. And if you let it run wild, it will build patterns of fear, worry, insecurity, laziness, and chaos. You were not born with a weak mind. No one is. But we are born into environments that constantly shape how our minds operate. Schools teach us how to memorize, but rarely how to think. Society tells us how to look, but not how to be. We grow up absorbing the voices of others, parents, peers, media, culture, and those voices become our internal monologue. Eventually, you start to believe every thought you have is yours. That's the first illusion. The truth is, your mind is programmable. It's trainable. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness behind those thoughts. And once you understand that, you hold the key to transformation. But like any powerful machine, the mind must be directed. Without conscious effort, it drifts, and drifting leads to destruction. Think about how much time people spend training their bodies. Hours at the gym, strict diets, perfecting form and technique. But how much time do they spend training the mind that decides whether to get out of bed, that determines what food to eat, that chooses when to stop or push harder? Very little. And then we wonder why we feel lost, stuck, overwhelmed. It's not because life is too hard. It's because the mind has not been trained to handle life. A trained mind creates clarity. It sees distractions for what they are. It doesn't panic in discomfort. It doesn't run from failure. It doesn't fall apart under criticism. It stands firm when things fall apart. A trained mind doesn't believe everything it thinks. It questions, reflects, and chooses thoughts like a warrior picks weapons carefully and with purpose. But this training isn't given, it's earned. It's the result of daily discipline, intentional living, and emotional self-mastery. You must become the gatekeeper of your mind. You must notice what enters, what stays, and what leaves. You must be ruthless with negativity, lazy thinking, and mental noise. You must starve your weaknesses and feed your strength. Your mind will test you. It will tempt you to take the easy path, to quit when it gets hard, to doubt yourself, to overthink, to avoid risk. But that's not because your mind hates you. It's because it's untrained. An untrained mind seeks comfort, but a trained mind craves growth. An untrained mind clings to safety, but a trained mind explores fear. An untrained mind avoids pain, but a trained mind uses pain as fuel. There is a saying, the chains of habit are too light to be felt until they are too heavy to be broken. Your mental habits, the way you respond to stress, the way you talk to yourself, the way you interpret failure, these are all patterns, and every day you reinforce them. The question is, are you reinforcing strength or weakness, clarity or confusion, power or paralysis? If you constantly give in to every urge, every fear, every distraction, every doubt, you're teaching your mind that you are not in control. You're handing over the steering wheel. But if you sit with discomfort, challenge your own thoughts, push through resistance, and stay consistent even when you don't feel like it, you're building a mind that listens to you, not the other way around. How do you begin? You begin by watching your thoughts. Most people never do this. They think and they react. But when you slow down and observe what your mind is doing, you start to realize how chaotic it is. The mind jumps from one thought to another like a monkey swinging from branch to branch. Meditation is one of the most effective ways to witness this. It's not about stopping thoughts. It's about becoming aware of them. And with that awareness comes the power to choose. You start to notice, hey, I'm catastrophizing right now, or I'm judging myself too harshly, or that thought is not helpful. That moment, that space between stimulus and response is where power lives. That's where you insert discipline. That's where you redirect your energy. Then comes discipline. Not the loud kind, not the dramatic kind, but the quiet kind. The kind that wakes up early when no one is watching. The kind that does the hard thing when it's easier to avoid. The kind that shows up day after day, building momentum like water cutting through rock. A trained mind doesn't wait for motivation, it obeys discipline. Another vital step is rewiring your self-talk. The way you speak to yourself shapes how you see yourself. Stop calling yourself lazy, stupid, weak, or unlucky. These are not facts. They're lies told often enough that you started to believe them. Replace them with powerful truths. You are resilient. You are capable. You are still learning. You can get better. This is not fake positivity, it's mental strength. Words are commands to the subconscious. Speak with power. Train your mind to love the process more than the outcome. People who obsess over results get crushed by failure. People who love the journey rise through failure. A trained mind sees every loss as a lesson, every setback as feedback, every delay as preparation. It's not that they don't feel pain, they do, but they don't live in it. They move through it. Be careful what you consume, the media you watch, the people you listen to, the conversations you entertain. These are the diet of your mind. If you feed your brain junk, you will think in junk. Gossip, negativity, outrage, drama, these are mental poison. Replace them with books that elevate you, ideas that challenge you, people who inspire you. A powerful mind is not always loud. In fact, it's often quiet. It doesn't need to argue. It doesn't need to prove itself. It's grounded. It's calm under pressure. It responds instead of reacting. It holds space for discomfort. It knows its worth. And when it speaks, people listen. But perhaps the most important thing to understand is this. You will never be free until your mind obeys you. True freedom is not doing whatever you want whenever you want. That's indulgence. That leads to chaos. True freedom is having the power to choose your thoughts, to direct your focus, to master your emotions. It's knowing that no matter what happens outside you, you control what happens within. There will be days when your mind turns against you, when it fills with fear, doubt, anger, or grief. Don't panic. Don't run. Don't numb it. Sit with it. Watch it. Breathe through it. Challenge it. Ask, is this thought true? Most of the time, it won't be. And once you realize that, you can let it go. You are not the storm. You are the sky behind it. And even when the darkness lingers, keep moving. Mental strength is not the absence of struggle. It's the decision to keep going through struggle. It's showing up, broken but not beaten. It's choosing hope even when your mind screams despair. It's choosing action even when your thoughts beg for escape. That's power. That's control. That's what it means to train your mind to obey you. Do not underestimate what a trained mind can do. It can build discipline where there was once procrastination. It can create calm where there was once anxiety. It can generate vision where there was once confusion. It can rebuild belief where there was once doubt. Your mind is always listening. Train it like you would train a warrior. Sharpen it daily. Feed it wisely. Test it regularly. Lead it constantly. If you don't, someone else will. Advertisers, social media, fear, trauma, laziness, they will all take turns steering your life. And eventually, you won't know who you are anymore. You'll just be a collection of reactions. That's the tragedy of the untrained mind. So I ask you, will you be the master of your mind or its slave? Will you command your thoughts or obey them blindly? Will you shape your mind like a sculptor or let it erode through neglect? Because here's the bottom line. Either you train your mind to obey you, or it will destroy you slowly, silently, relentlessly. The time to take control is now. Most people go through life assuming that the thoughts they think are true, that every voice in their head is their own, and that the mind is some kind of fixed, all-knowing entity. But the reality is far different. The mind is not infallible. It is not inherently wise or always correct. It is simply a tool, powerful, yes, but programmable. And like any tool, it can be used to build something great or to destroy everything in its path, depending on how it's trained and who is doing the training. We inherit our mental patterns from a mix of influences: our upbringing, our culture, our experiences, and our environment. From a young age, we absorb the beliefs and behaviors of those around us. If you grew up hearing, "You're not good enough," "Money is evil," or "Don't take risks," those phrases don't stay outside of you. They embed themselves in your inner world, and before you even have the awareness to question them, they become your internal script. You begin to operate according to mental programming you never consciously chose. Just because a thought arises doesn't mean it reflects truth. Your mind can be wrong. It can overreact. It can misinterpret reality. It can cling to outdated fears, inflate dangers, and create imaginary barriers. The thought, "I can't do this," often shows up not because you can't, but because your mind is conditioned to protect you from discomfort. The mind doesn't always prioritize truth. It prioritizes safety, familiarity, and control. And in doing so, it often limits your potential. The good news is that this conditioning is not permanent. You can reprogram your mind, but the first step is awareness. You must step outside your thoughts and observe them objectively. Notice the loops you tend to get stuck in. Notice the negative self-talk, the instant judgments, the fear-based reactions. Don't fight them. Don't suppress them. Just become aware. Because once you can see your mental patterns, you gain the power to change them. Reprogramming the mind means deliberately feeding it new information, new beliefs, and new habits. It means challenging the old narratives that no longer serve you. If your mind constantly says, "I'm not confident," you don't have to accept that as true. You can replace it with, "I'm becoming more confident every day," and then take small actions that reinforce that belief. Over time, this repetition starts to overwrite the old code. The mind begins to reflect the new programming. This process takes time, patience, and effort. You wouldn't expect to build muscle after one workout, and the same goes for mental transformation. The mind resists change at first. It clings to the familiar, even if the familiar is painful or limiting. But with consistency, the mind begins to adapt. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to form new connections, proves this scientifically. Your brain physically rewires itself based on repeated thoughts and behaviors. What you focus on grows stronger. What you neglect fades away. Because the mind is programmable, It also means it is vulnerable. If you don't take charge of your own mental programming, someone else will. The media, advertising, social platforms, and even toxic people are all constantly feeding your mind ideas, images, and beliefs. Without conscious filtering, these messages can take root and shape your decisions without you even realizing it. That's why intentionality is essential. You must choose what enters your mind just as carefully as you choose what you eat. Ultimately, realizing that your mind is programmable is one of the most liberating truths you can embrace. It means you are not stuck. You are not doomed to repeat old mistakes. You are not defined by your past. You have the power to shape your thinking, your perspective, and by extension, your life. But this power only becomes real when you decide to take responsibility for it. The mind is a tool, not a master, and it's up to you to use it wisely. We are wired to avoid pain, minimize risk, and seek out what's familiar. This was useful in ancient times, when survival depended on staying safe, conserving energy, and avoiding danger. But in the modern world, that same instinct can become a trap, especially when it's left unchecked. An untrained mind follows this wiring blindly. It chooses ease over effort, pleasure over purpose, and safety over self-development. It becomes reactive, passive, and eventually stagnant. An untrained mind always seeks the path of least resistance. It says stay in bed when the alarm goes off. It says quit when things get difficult. It says don't try when there's a risk of failure. It constantly negotiates with discipline and justifies weakness. And because it always seeks immediate relief from discomfort, whether it's boredom, fear, fatigue, or stress, it never allows a person to reach their full potential. It settles for what's convenient instead of what's meaningful. But a trained mind is different. A trained mind understands that growth never comes from comfort. It knows that progress lives on the edge of struggle, that strength is built through stress, and that pain is often the doorway to personal evolution. It doesn't run from discomfort. It uses it. Where an untrained mind avoids challenge, a trained mind seeks it. It doesn't mean it enjoys suffering, but it sees the value in it. It has learned to separate temporary pain from long-term purpose. The difference between the two isn't talent, intelligence, or luck. It's mindset. An untrained mind believes struggle is a sign to stop. A trained mind sees struggle as a signal to push forward. One sees difficulty as a threat. The other sees it as an opportunity. This shift doesn't happen by accident. It's built through repetition, intentional decisions, and a willingness to step outside the comfort zone over and over again. Comfort feels good in the short term, but over time too much of it becomes suffocating. It dulls your ambition, erodes your discipline, and leaves you unfulfilled. Growth, on the other hand, often feels uncomfortable in the moment, but deeply satisfying in the long run. A trained mind learns to delay gratification, to choose the harder right over the easier wrong, and to stay present even when things hurt. It becomes familiar with discomfort and therefore less controlled by it. Training your mind to crave growth means reframing the way you interpret discomfort. Instead of asking, how can I avoid this? You start asking, what can I learn from this? You no longer fear fear itself. You study it, work through it, and grow stronger because of it. Every time you step into the unknown, face rejection, pursue a hard goal, or do something you've never done before, you're sending a message to your mind. This is who I am now. Over time, your identity starts to change. You go from someone who avoids pressure to someone who thrives under it. You go from comfort seeker to growth chaser. The truth is, you can't build resilience in ease. You can't learn courage without fear. You can't become mentally tough by always staying in safe spaces. Every meaningful transformation is born through friction. And once your mind becomes accustomed to that process, once it sees growth as more rewarding than comfort, you become dangerous in the best way. Not because life gets easier, but because you become stronger. In a world that constantly offers distractions, shortcuts, and instant gratification, training your mind to crave growth makes you rare. But more importantly, it makes you ready. Ready for success, for leadership, for challenges, and for whatever life throws at you. Because while the untrained mind breaks under pressure, the trained mind breaks limits. Not once in a while discipline, not when you feel like it discipline, but consistent, daily effort that becomes a non-negotiable part of who you are. Discipline is the invisible structure behind every powerful mind. It's the quiet force that drives action when motivation fades, that anchors focus when distractions pull, and that keeps you moving forward even when your feelings beg you to stop. Many people wait for motivation to strike before they act. They say, I'll start when I feel ready, or I'll be consistent when I'm inspired. But the truth is, waiting for motivation is a trap. Motivation is fleeting. It comes and goes like the weather. If you rely on it, your progress will be as inconsistent as your mood. Discipline, on the other hand, doesn't care how you feel. It shows up regardless. It doesn't need permission or ideal conditions. It operates with commitment, not convenience. Daily discipline means doing what needs to be done, even when you don't want to, especially when you don't want to. It's waking up on time, keeping promises to yourself, sticking to your routine, showing up for your goals day after day. These actions might seem small in the moment, but they compound. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you cast a vote for the kind of person you want to become. You reinforce identity. You build momentum. Mental strength grows through repetition. Think of it like training a muscle. You don't get stronger by lifting a heavy weight once. You get stronger by showing up consistently, putting in reps, pushing through the burn. The mind works the same way. Every time you follow through on a difficult task, every time you resist an impulse, every time you take action instead of making excuses, you strengthen your mind's capacity to handle pressure, uncertainty, and challenge. It's in the daily choices that transformation happens, not the big dramatic moments, but the small quiet ones. Choosing to read instead of scrolling, choosing to work out when you'd rather rest, choosing to write when you're not inspired. These moments add up. They forge character. They train your mind to obey you, to respect your word, and to perform under stress. Without this kind of daily training, the mind defaults to comfort, excuses, and avoidance. Discipline also brings clarity. When you live by principles instead of impulses, you eliminate decision fatigue. You don't waste mental energy debating whether or not to do the right thing. You just do it. Your life becomes more focused, more intentional. You build trust with yourself. That inner trust is priceless, because once you know you can rely on yourself, your confidence grows. You stop doubting. You stop overthinking. You act. People often assume discipline is restrictive, that it limits freedom, but the opposite is true. Discipline creates freedom. It frees you from the trap of inconsistency. It frees you from the chaos of undirected. It frees you from emotional swings that sabotage progress. When your life is rooted in daily discipline, you gain control. You lead your mind instead of being led by it. Mental strength doesn't mean you never struggle. It doesn't mean you're always positive or fearless. It means you keep showing up. You don't let pain, boredom, or doubt control your behavior. You rise above it. That ability to act with intention in the face of resistance is what separates those who live with purpose from those who live on autopilot. The disciplined mind doesn't just wait for the right moment, it creates the right moment. It turns routine into ritual. It turns effort into identity. Over time, it transforms not just what you do, but who you are. And that transformation is where real power lives. Awareness is the beginning of all mental mastery. Without awareness, you're not in control. You're simply reacting. Thoughts come, emotions rise, behaviors follow, and you're caught in a loop that you never chose. But the moment you become aware of your mind, truly aware, you open a door, you create space. And in that space, you gain power, power to pause, power to choose, power to change. Most people live unconsciously. They're driven by habits they never examine, beliefs they never challenge, and emotions they don't understand. They confuse thoughts with truth. They believe every internal reaction is justified simply because it feels real. But awareness separates you from your automatic responses. It allows you to observe your thoughts without becoming them. That shift changes everything. Imagine standing on a busy street, watching cars go by. Each car is a thought, some positive, some negative, some anxious, some inspired. An unaware person chases every car, jumps in, and lets it drive them wherever it wants. But an aware person stands still, watches the traffic, and chooses which car, if any, is worth following. That's the difference. Awareness doesn't mean you stop having negative thoughts. It means you stop being controlled by them. This power begins with observation, not judgment, not suppression, just noticing. When you start to observe your mind, you realize how chaotic it can be, how much of your thinking is repetitive, anxious, or rooted in fear. But noticing this is not weakness, it's strength, because once you see the pattern, you're no longer trapped by it. You create a gap between thought and action, between emotion and reaction, and in that gap is your freedom. The reason awareness is so powerful is because it breaks the cycle of reactivity. You no longer lash out in anger without realizing it. You no longer spiral in anxiety without questioning it. You begin to respond instead of react. You become intentional instead of impulsive. That's what separates someone who is mentally strong from someone who is constantly overwhelmed. Not that one has fewer thoughts or emotions, but that one is more aware of them and less owned by them. With awareness comes responsibility. You start to notice not only what you think, but why you think it. Where did this belief come from? Is it even mine? Why do I react this way to certain people or situations? Why do I keep repeating the same behavior even when it hurts me? These are questions most people never ask, but they're the key to growth. You can't change what you refuse to see. When you become aware of your emotional triggers, you stop letting them run your life. When you become aware of your limiting beliefs, you stop letting them define you. When you become aware of your mental habits, you can start to break them and build better ones. Awareness is not passive. It's a powerful form of action. Because once you see clearly, you can act wisely. Awareness also builds resilience. When challenges come, the unaware mind panics. It reacts emotionally, catastrophizes, gives up. But the aware mind notices what's happening internally. I'm feeling anxious. My mind is racing. This is triggering an old fear, and just that act of noticing calms the system. It grounds you. It brings you back into control. It reminds you, I am not my fear. I am not my thoughts. I am the observer. I have a choice. True awareness is not occasional. It's a practice. It's something you cultivate daily. Through meditation and reflection, journaling, or simply pausing throughout the day and checking in with your mental state. The more you practice, the sharper your awareness becomes. And the sharper it becomes, the more power you have to guide your life consciously instead of drifting through it. In the end, the most dangerous mind is the one that doesn't know itself. The most powerful mind is the one that sees itself clearly. Awareness is the foundation. Without it, discipline is aimless, motivation is fleeting, and growth is accidental. But with it, you gain the ultimate advantage, the ability to direct your mind instead of being directed by it. That's where real power begins. The words you speak to yourself matter more than most people realize. Self-talk, the constant internal dialogue running through your mind, is one of the most powerful forces shaping your identity. It's not just about how you feel in the moment, it's about who you become over time. Because what you repeatedly say to yourself, you begin to believe. And what you believe, you act on. And what you act on, you become. In this way, your self-talk literally sculpts your sense of self, for better or worse. Most people never question the things they say to themselves. When they mess up, they mutter, I'm such an idiot. When they hesitate, they think, I'm just not confident enough. When they face a challenge, they say, I'll never figure this out. These might sound like harmless thoughts, but they're not. They're mental instructions. They're programming your subconscious mind to see those statements as truth. Over time, you start to live inside those words. They become a lens through which you view yourself and your potential. The problem is, negative self-talk is often automatic. It's rooted in old experiences, failures, or voices from the past. Maybe someone once told you that you weren't good enough, smart enough, or capable enough, and you internalized it. Now it echoes through your own voice disguised as truth. But just because you've repeated a thought for years doesn't make it accurate. It makes it familiar, and familiarity is not the same as truth. The good news is that just as negative self-talk can build weakness, positive, intentional self-talk can build strength. You can change your internal language. You can speak to yourself with clarity, encouragement, and discipline. This doesn't mean diluting yourself or ignoring your flaws. It means choosing to speak in a way that empowers you instead of paralyzing you. It means replacing I can't with I'm learning, replacing I'm terrible at this with I'm improving every day, replacing I always fail with I haven't succeeded yet. This kind of self-talk doesn't just feel good, it changes the way your brain functions. Neuroscience shows that your words affect your neurochemistry. Negative self-talk triggers stress, while constructive self-talk activates parts of the brain responsible for focused problem solving and action. Your internal dialogue either prepares you to succeed or primes you to give up before you even begin. It's not just psychology, it's biology. And self-talk isn't just what you say when things are going well, it's what you say in the moments of struggle that define you. When you fail, when you're afraid, when everything seems uncertain, how do you speak to yourself then? That's the true test. Anyone can be positive when things are easy. But a strong identity is built in hard moments. Telling yourself, I can get through this, or this challenge will make me stronger, changes how you face adversity. It keeps you grounded. It keeps you going over time. This practice shifts your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries and start seeing yourself as someone who is. You become someone who is resilient, who follows through, who adapts and grows, not because you were born that way, but because you trained your mind to believe it and then acted in alignment with that belief day after day. You have to be intentional. You have to catch the negative patterns and interrupt them. You have to speak to yourself the way you would speak to someone you care about, with truth, with encouragement, and with standards. Not soft comfort, but firm belief. I expect more from you because I know what you're capable of. In the end, your self-talk is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Speak like a victim, and you'll stay one. Speak like a leader, and you'll rise to that level. Speak like someone who never quits, and you'll prove yourself right. Every word you say to yourself is either reinforcing the identity you want or the one you're trying to escape. The choice is yours. Speak with power, speak with intention, and watch who you become. If you don't take control of your own mind, someone else or something else will. That's not a dramatic statement. It's a truth that plays out every single day in people's lives, often without them realizing it. The world is full of forces trying to influence the way you think, feel, and act. Advertisements, social media algorithms, peer pressure, cultural norms, past traumas, old conditioning, all constantly fighting for space in your consciousness. And if you don't consciously decide what stays in your mind and what gets rejected, you become a passive participant in your own life. The human mind is not neutral. It's not a blank space where thoughts float in and out harmlessly. It's an engine, one that's always running, always processing, always absorbing. And like any engine, it needs direction. If you don't give it direction, it doesn't just stop, it gets hijacked. Without control, the mind defaults to survival mode, fear, comparison, doubt, impulsiveness, and the more passive you are with your mind, the more susceptible you become to manipulation, subtle or obvious. Think about how much time people spend on their phones, watching content designed to shape their opinions, their desires, even their self-worth. Scroll after scroll, your attention is being pulled, not randomly, but deliberately. Companies spend billions figuring out how to capture and hold your focus. If they can influence your attention, they can influence your choices. And if they can influence your choices, they are essentially steering your life, all without you being fully aware of it. That's the danger of an unguarded mind. This doesn't just apply to media, it applies to people, environments, and even old memories. If you don't actively manage your thoughts, your mind will replay past failures, amplify your insecurities, or echo someone else's opinions until you can't tell where they end and you begin. And that's the slow erosion of self, when your mind is filled with noise that's not even yours, when your reactions are automatic, when your habits are unconscious, when your life feels like something happening to you instead of something you're creating. But when you take control of your mind, everything changes. You become intentional about what you consume, what you believe, what you focus on. You stop reacting blindly and start responding deliberately. You question your thoughts instead of obeying them. You filter your influences instead of absorbing everything. You reclaim your mental real estate and with it your power. Control doesn't mean suppressing every thought or forcing yourself to be positive all the time. It means stepping into the role of the observer, the one who decides. It means developing the mental discipline to pause, reflect, and choose your thoughts instead of being dragged by them. It's the skill of leadership, self-leadership, because you can't lead your life if you can't lead your mind. This kind of control is built, not given. It comes from self-awareness, from daily mental discipline, from protecting your focus like it's your most valuable currency, because it is where your focus goes, your energy flows. And if you don't control that flow, it will be used against you to sell you things, distract you, divide you, or simply keep you stuck. People often wonder why they feel anxious, unmotivated, or confused. Often the answer isn't in some big mystery, it's in a lack of mental ownership. When you let the world dictate your thoughts, your life becomes fragmented. But when you take back that control, you start to live with intention. You start to decide for yourself what matters, what to pursue, what to believe, and who to become. You have a responsibility to protect your mind, to choose the input, to design your internal world with the same care you would design your home. You wouldn't let strangers come into your house and trash it. Don't let random thoughts, toxic people, or manipulative content do the same to your mind. Because if you don't train your mind to serve you, someone else will train it to serve them. And you'll wake up one day living a life that wasn't built by your values, your purpose, or your truth, but by default, by influence, by programming you never consented to. Control your mind, or someone else will.